Everyone knows what Disneyland or Disney World is. They've become such a cultural phenomenon that when you think of theme parks, your mind instantly races not to your local theme park, but to Disneyland. As you might imagine, many non-Disney theme parks have tried to capitalize on this, creating their own versions of Disneyland rides with the hopes of attracting guests. At one point in time, European theme parks were the worst offenders. Many brand new theme parks across Europe were often inspired by Disney rides, constructing cheaper and inferior copies. Some even used the exact same name. However, Walt Disney was inspired too. He traveled the globe gaining inspiration for his original Disneyland park, which debuted in 1955 in Anaheim, California, USA. And a lot of the inspiration came directly from some of the world's first theme parks, which just so happened to be located in Europe. To understand this tangled web of inspiration, copycats, and everything in between, we must start at the beginning. Where did the idea for Disneyland actually come from? In his personal life, Walt Disney would make frequent trips with his two daughters to Griffith Park, located near Los Angeles, California. Today, the park is home to a wide array of attractions for visitors. One of these is the Griffith Merry-Go-Round, which was built in 1926 and brought to Griffith Park in 1937. Walt would take his daughters to the park to watch them enjoy a countless number of rides on the carousel. This got him thinking. He dreamt of creating a place where families could enjoy a safe, clean, entertaining experience together where parents wouldn't be excluded from the rides. This was where the idea for Disneyland was born. Walt described it by saying, "The idea of Disneyland lay dormant for years, but it came along when I was taking my kids around to these kiddie parks." His initial designs showed a new kind of amusement park, one with a small park attached to the studio lot. Though, he quickly realized this wouldn't be big enough to fulfill his dreams. To get more inspiration, Walt began to tour various amusement parks, first across the US and then wider. In particular, he took interest in Beverly Park, a small park with a carousel, a train ride, and little boats for children. Walt spent multiple days there getting feedback from the guests about their experiences. According to Bruce Gordon, an Imagineer at Disney, at the time Walt was thinking about Disneyland, many amusement parks were in areas that weren't ideal for letting children go on their own. Many were in dirty and shady neighborhoods. He saw one exception to this, however, Tivoli Gardens. In 1843, Georg Carstensen opened Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, Denmark. Inspired by the then defunct Parisian Tivoli and Vauxhall Gardens in London, Carstensen's goal behind the development of the park was to keep the people happy. He wanted Tivoli Gardens to be a place where they could escape the realities of the world and experience an environment designed to bring joy. In the beginning, the park was home to restaurants, cafes, a theatre, gardens, and amusement rides. It immediately proved to be successful and has remained successful to this day. Tivoli Gardens is now the second oldest operating theme park in the world, attracting over 4 million guests each year. At the time of his visit, Tivoli struck Walt as being a clean, well-run, festive park. Disney was completely in love with Tivoli Gardens and would spend time taking notes on all aspects of the park. When asked what he was doing, he responded, "I'm just making notes about something that I've always dreamed of, a great, great playground for children and the families of America," thus marking the birth of Disneyland as we know it. Throughout its history, Tivoli Gardens has continued to cherish one sentiment started by its founder just years after its debut. Georg Carstensen constantly changed and evolved his park, providing new forms of entertainments for guests of all ages. It's said that Carstensen stated in 1844, "Tivoli will never, so to speak, be finished." Over 100 years later, when talking about his own Disneyland theme park, Walt Disney echoed that exact same sentiment. Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. It's something that will never be finished, something that I can keep developing and adding to. Both Tivoli and Disneyland have continued to evolve, adapt, and change over the decades, one of the reasons both remain icons to this day. In 1956, just a year after the opening of Disneyland, Walt committed to constructing a range of new e-ticket rides for the park. He described some sort of sled mountain ride, with his initial thoughts being a snowy hill which guests could sled down. As this would have been a logistical nightmare, his ideas quickly moved on. Disneyland executives then became aware of an increasingly popular Steel Wild Mouse roller coaster and wondered whether this could be their new attraction. At roughly the same time, Walt Disney Productions had just started filming their newest film, Third Man on the Mountain. Shot in the Matter Valley of Switzerland, Walt took a holiday to visit the set. Upon arrival, he was so impressed by the view of the majestic Matterhorn that he had to share it with others. He quickly mailed a postcard of the Matterhorn to WED Enterprises engineer Vic Green with the message, "Vic, build this." In 1959, the Matterhorn bobsleds were born. Featuring a twisted roller coaster inside of a snowy mountain scene, the ride was certainly impressive. Yet, it shared a remarkable resemblance to one of the world's oldest roller coasters, Rutscherbahn at Tivoli Gardens. Built in 1914, the ride also navigates a snowy mountain scene while dipping in and out of the rocky landscape, though perhaps this was just a coincidence. 4 years after the debut of Disneyland in Anaheim, Walt began looking for a plot for their second resort. After flying over many potential sites, he settled on one in Orlando, Florida. Using various dummy corporations, the Walt Disney World Company purchased over 30,000 acres of land and got to work. Sadly, just a few years into the project, Walt Disney died as a result of worsening health due to lung cancer. His brother and business partner, Roy O. Disney, took the reins, overseeing the construction of the resort's first phase. Finally, in 1971, after over a decade of hard work, Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom opened to guests. But more was always on the horizon. Walt originally envisioned an experimental community that would be at the forefront of technology. He called it the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, or EPCOT for short. After Walt's death, the original plan for EPCOT was shelved. However, the concept eventually evolved into the resort's second theme park. Opening in 1982 as the Epcot Center, the park resembled a World's Fair exhibition showcasing new technology and various countries from around the world. However, while the Walt Disney World Company were working on this, another branch of the organization was working on the first Disney theme park outside of North America, Tokyo Disneyland. Though this wasn't their original plan. After the opening of Epcot, the Disney company set their eyes on Europe, drawing up initial plans as early as 1972. While Disney was looking at Europe, the Japanese Oriental Land Company were looking at Disney. The Oriental Land Company was founded in 1960 with a very specific focus: to build the best recreational facility in Asia. Initially, they drew inspiration from both European and American leisure facilities. The company visited both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, eventually deciding that Disney could be the ones to carry out their vision. The two companies agreed to a partnership, and together they began to construct Tokyo Disneyland. Concrete designs were made in 1977, while construction began in 1980. After lots of planning and hard work, Tokyo Disneyland opened to guests in April of 1983. The park was an instant hit, attracting over 10 million guests within the first year of operation. Disney's first expansion outside of North America was a huge success. While the Walt Disney Company focused on Epcot and later Tokyo Disneyland, something else was happening in Europe. The 1970s and early 80s saw an amusement resurgence, with a huge number of theme parks opening their doors for the first time. Like any good attraction, they wanted to expand quickly. Many began to construct new rides to draw in the crowds, but didn't have the budget to take any major risks. With the success of Disneyland and Disney World, many came to the same conclusion: budget Disney attractions. The premise was simple: take a tried and tested Disney ride and make it for cheaper. At the time, this had advantages. Parks already knew the rides were popular attractions in the United States and assumed they'd be popular in Europe too, plus they would be unique to the continent as Disney hadn't managed to expand there yet. So, for about 2 decades, a whole mixture of new and upcoming theme parks across Europe began to recycle Disney themes and attractions. One of the first major rip-offs was the Alton Towers in the United Kingdom. In 1975, Magic Kingdom at Disney World debuted Space Mountain, an enclosed roller coaster themed to space. The ride takes place in the dark, with guests exploring the cosmos as they whip around the compact layout. 9 years later, Alton Towers attempted to give their visitors the same experience with the Black Hole. They took an off-the-shelf roller coaster model and put it inside of a large tent. Unlike Space Mountain, which had lights and projections, the Black Hole took place in total darkness with absolutely nothing to see. Alton Towers weren't the only ones though. Germany's Phantasialand opened Space Center in 1988, another space-themed enclosed roller coaster. However, this one featured models of asteroids and planets as well as lights, bringing it closer to the real Space Mountain. Just a single year later, Europa Park, also located in Germany, opened their indoor space-themed roller coaster too. Eurosat not only used Disney's idea, they also stuck the whole thing in a large geodesic dome, almost identical to the one that is the embodiment of Epcot. Though, Europa Park gained inspiration for more than just new roller coasters. In 1987, they built Pirates in Batavia. 20 years earlier, Disneyland constructed Pirates of the Caribbean, a water-based dark ride which sees guests travel through various scenes of animatronic pirates wreaking havoc. Europa Park simply took that concept and created their own attraction. Their original version also included direct copies of scenes from the Disneyland ride. Drayton Manor in the United Kingdom also went on to construct their own pirate-themed boat ride in 1990, named Pirate Adventure. It featured similar but lower quality animatronics and copied scenes, albeit with a dog swapped with a goat. Italy's Gardaland were also inspired by Pirates of the Caribbean too. They debuted I Corsari in 1992, another pirate-themed dark ride with animatronics and other effects. These are just two examples of rides that multiple theme parks were inspired by, but the real list is endless. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, a mine train themed to the American Southwest, opened in 1979 at Disneyland in Anaheim. In 1987, Chessington World of Adventures opened Runaway Train. Wallaby Belgium opened Calamity Mine in 1992, and 1996 saw the debut of Colorado Adventure at Phantasialand. All three featured very similar characteristics to Disney's original railroad ride. It seemed that Europa Park wasn't afraid to directly rip off Disney innovations. They debuted Geisterschloss in 1982, a haunted house ride featuring the exact same expanding room trick used on the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland in 1969. All in all, many parks were more than happy to use someone else's idea rather than create their own. Though, it's safe to say that some rides and parks were worse offenders than others. Many used Disney's rides as inspiration and created their own interpretation of that attraction. The fact that a large number of parks created similar rides has led to many of these themes becoming staple within the amusement industry. When you think of theme park attractions, your mind races to mine train-like rides, or space-themed attractions, or even pirate boat rides. Can it be called copying anymore when these themes are synonymous with theme parks? It's no surprise that after the success of its two theme parks in the United States, Disney wanted to expand into Europe. Plans for a European theme park emerged as early as 1972. However, the eagerness of the Oriental Land Company to build Disneyland in Japan put these plans on pause. Nevertheless, after the successful opening of Tokyo Disney, the European expansion was back on the table. Over 1,200 possible sites were found for the new park, which was later narrowed down to just 4, 2 in Spain and 2 in France. Ultimately, the site in the rural French town of Marne-la-Vallée was eventually chosen due to its location within the centre of Western Europe and its close proximity to Paris. In 1987, the Walt Disney Company and the French government both signed the contract for the development of Disneyland Paris, named Euro Disney at the time. Construction began in 1990, and roughly 2 years later, in April of 1992, Euro Disney opened to guests. Leading up to the opening, Disney spent time and effort trying to adapt an American theme park to European tastes. To do this, the team behind Euro Disney consulted the Efteling, a well-established theme park in the Netherlands. Themed to fairy tales, fables and folklore, the Efteling opened in 1952, only 3 years before the original Disneyland theme park. Today, it currently stands as one of the busiest theme parks in Europe. At the time, the Efteling helped to modify Euro Disney to better suit European culture. Despite this, Euro Disney was considered a cultural nightmare. Critics at the time stated it would encourage unhealthy American consumerism in France, and that the park's policies were insensitive to French culture. This, as well as a range of other factors, led to Euro Disney being unsuccessful upon its debut. Nevertheless, Disney had finally made it to Europe. The new park brought with it the rides and themes that had been copied copious times by other European amusement parks. Euro Disney opened in 1992 with Pirates of the Caribbean and Big Thunder Mountain, and later saw the addition of a uniquely French version of their Space Mountain ride in 1995. This meant that the European public were able to experience the real deal. Why ride a rip-off when you can experience the actual ride firsthand? Many other European theme parks were forced to rethink their strategy. Do they risk continuing to copy Disney and be branded as a cheap knockoff? Or do they take the plunge and try unique rides and themes that haven't been tested before? Like with any movement, initial progress was slow. parks realized that they needed to shift away from creating Disney-inspired attractions and instead produce their own ride concepts. For some, it took Disney entering the European market to realize this, but for others, they'd already begun creating their own unique attractions. Chessington World of Adventures in the UK introduced their Big Thunder Mountain Railroad-inspired roller coaster in 1987. But in the same year, they also debuted the Fifth Dimension, a one-of-a-kind cyberspace-themed dark ride which heavily emphasized special effects. Ultimately, the ride didn't do too well, lasting only 6 years. However, it did kickstart a movement. John Wardley, the park development director for Two Swords, the company that owned Chessington at the time, had been involved in both of these two projects. But he took the reins further in 1990 with the debut of Professor Burp's Bubble Works. John didn't want to repeat the Americanized themes of Disney, he wanted to produce an attraction that appealed to the nuances of the British public. His idea, travelling in boats, guests would make their way through a magical factory that produces Professor Burp's Fizzy Pop. Similar to the Fifth Dimension, the ride came to life through the use of special effects and animations. In the end, Bubbleworks was a huge success. John and the Two Swords group had realised the power of a unique ride theme specifically curated for their target audience. In 1994, John and his team introduced the world to Nemesis, a B&M inverted roller coaster. Despite rides like this existing at the time, Alton Towers' Nemesis was different. It featured an alien theme and placed heavy emphasis on utilizing undulating terrain specifically designed for the new ride. At the time, Nemesis was unlike any other roller coaster. Alton Towers continued to find success in being unique and designing rides for the British public. In 2000, they debuted Hex, a dark ride which supposedly takes place within the park's stately home, the Towers. Themed to the local legend of the chained oak tree, the story involves a previous inhabitant of the Towers, the 5th Earl of Shrewsbury, being cursed by a witch. The ride's eerie setting and the fact that the chained oak tree actually exists both help to immerse guests in the spine-tingling story. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, the idea of creating unique themes had spread to other theme parks that were also previously Disneyland copycats. Phantasialand opened Black Mamba to the public in 2006, also a B&M inverted coaster. Set in an African village, the ride is themed to the snake of the same name and also weaves in and out of the terrain. Bluefire at Europa Park opened to guests in 2009, an Icelandic-themed roller coaster. Guests find themselves within a secret laboratory where an experiment begins to go wrong. Seconds later, they're accelerated out of the building and into the rocky Icelandic landscape. Many of the parks mentioned have also continued to produce original rides. Alton Towers built the Smiler in 2013, a roller coaster themed to manipulating riders into smiling, while in 2018 they debuted Wicker Man, a ride which results in guests being sacrificed to a large, burning wooden effigy. While Phantasialand opened Taron in 2016, a double-launch coaster set in the heart of Klugheim, a medieval village, and Fly in 2020, the world's first launched flying roller coaster which sees guests soar through the steampunk district of Rookburg. Over the course of just a few decades, everything changed. Parks that once copied Disney's every move were now at the forefront of storytelling, driven by distinctive themes and immersive landscapes unique to their region. Today, roller coasters and theme park attractions are the best they've ever been. New technology has opened up a whole new genre of amusement rides, ones which can truly immerse guests into the story. Both Disney and European theme parks, as well as other parks around the world, are trying new things, pushing limits, and creating individual attractions. Because of this, inspiration is now flowing both ways. In 2001, Disney's California Adventure Park debuted Soarin' Over California, a flight motion simulator which sees guests suspended in front of a 180-degree dome screen, giving them the sensation of flight. The attraction originally allowed guests to soar over the skies of California, witnessing various state landmarks. Known now as the Flying Theater, this type of ride has recently become increasingly popular. Disney themselves built similar versions of the original Soarin' ride at Epcot, Shanghai Disneyland Park, and Tokyo Disney Sea, while Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi built a Ferrari-themed version in 2016, Europa Park constructed their own version, Voletarium, in 2017, and the various Legoland parks have begun installing them around the world too. Though Disney popularized the technology, other parks have put their own spin on it. The various Legoland rides see guests become part of the action-packed animated adventure alongside Emmett, the protagonist of the Lego Movie. On the other hand, theme parks like Disney and Universal have taken interest in and seemingly gained inspiration from other smaller theme parks around the world. With the debut of Klugheim and Taron, Phantasialand attracted a lot of attention. The giants of the industry, Disney and Universal, both visited the park to see their work. They spoke to the people involved with the project and gained insight into its design and construction. Several years after the opening of Taron, Universal Studios Islands of Adventure began work on a new attraction of their own, Velocicoaster. Set to debut in summer of 2021, Velocicoaster is the same type of roller coaster as Taron, built by the same company. It uses extensive rock work, low-to-the-ground elements, and compact sections of track, just like Taron 2. It's safe to say that Universal were most likely initially inspired by Phantasialand's creation, though Disney does their fair share of research too. In 2016, Thorpe Park debuted Derren Brown's Ghost Train, a one-of-a-kind multi-stage dart ride which heavily utilizes virtual reality to immerse guests into the attraction's storyline. The ride sees visitors board and later leave what appear to be multiple different ride vehicles several times. Every time they do this, their journey begins and ends in distinctly different places, each of which help to develop the story further. It's said that shortly after its opening, Disney creatives visited the attraction to learn more about it. Several years later, in late 2019, Disney's Hollywood Studios opened Rise of the Resistance to the public, a multi-stage dart ride themed to the Star Wars universe. The ride draws parallels to Derren Brown's Ghost Train. Both see guests board multiple different ride vehicles as they experience different forms of storytelling. Rise of the Resistance has been quoted by many as one of the world's best dart rides, while it's also likely that Velocicoaster will become one of the world's best roller coasters. In this context, inspiration is good. It allows theme parks to build on top of the knowledge, experience, and success of others, ultimately to create ever better attractions and to move the industry forwards. Walt Disney gained inspiration from some of the best at his time to create what would become the most successful collection of theme parks the world has ever seen. If he hadn't gained inspiration, who knows what theme parks would be like today.